Welcome to Out of the Blue, number 357. So today I'm going to make a recording today on the 7 string, but that's for number 358. But before I do that, I want to do a long talky one about Neo-Swedenborgianism. So Neo-Swedenborgianism is a worldview, and one of the reasons I call it Neo-Swedenborgianism is because it is in contrast to what is the current worldview, the current scientific worldview that we, as so-called Westerners in Western civilization, live under, is something called Neo-Kantianism. And whether you know it or not, or whether you like it or not, that is our worldview, and it can be seen expressed in things like Star Trek. Okay, Star Trek is a fictional extrapolation of Neo-Kantianism, which is why, and it's no coincidence, the arch enemy in Star Trek is the Borg. Because Kant and Swedenborg were contemporaries. They lived at the same time, and they were somewhat at odds in some ways. So in the fictional extrapolation into the future, which is an expression of a Neo-Kantian worldview, the Borg, coincidentally sounding much like Swedenborg, is the enemy. So the worldview is like the ocean, and our culture is like a ship on the ocean. So culture is a ship that we are inside of, and it's so big that it's sometimes hard to see, and it's also not entirely within our control. Like a huge ship on the sea, if you're not the captain, you're not steering the ship, and even the captain is not making the weather. So there's an aspect of helplessness in this, where we cannot control where this massive ship called Western civilization is going. But we can see where it's been, and we can kind of extrapolate and look and see where it might be going. I'm going to quote two people now. I'm going to quote Bob Marley, the reggae artist, and I'm going to quote Martin Jaffe, who was the head of my department at college. Bob Marley, he says, "God came back black." I'll just leave it at that for a minute. And I'm going to quote Martin Jaffe here in a moment. But I want to say, I wanted to find this quote today, and at first I thought I might have to Google search it. But then I realized that it's on the Intergalactic Neo-Swedenborgianism Facebook page. I realized that I had already found it and posted it on the Facebook page a long time ago. But while looking for it, I came across, there's only 75 pictures on the Facebook page, but it's very interesting. And I'm going to link it in the comments below on YouTube, because if you want to know something about Neo-Swedenborgianism, it gives you a little idea. So Martin Jaffe now, I'm going to digress a moment and say that there's a common saying that you're not supposed to talk about religion or politics. And a lot of people who are talking politics are also overtly religious. But Neo-Swedenborgianism talks about religion without being a religion. As I said, it's a worldview which is bigger than a religion. In talking about religion, so I already mentioned Bob Marley as a Rasta. Now I'm going to talk about Martin Jaffe, who was Jewish and was the head of the department where I went to college, the comparative religion department. But he was on sabbatical for the time I was there. I spent a lot of time there 1 year. I was there part time for a couple years, and then 1 year I was full time, and he was on sabbatical for that year. So I've never met Martin Jaffe. I do not know Martin Jaffe. But he was the head of the department, and every time I'd get an email, a department email, his little tag was on the end of every one of these emails. Rabbi Elazar Hapakar used to say, "You were conceived without being consulted. You were born without being consulted. You live without being consulted. And you'll die without being consulted. And without being consulted, you are going to account for yourself before the King of Kings, the Blessed Holy One." And then Martin Jaffe added a little tag on the end which says, "He did not say, 'Have a nice day.'" So this "he did not say, 'Have a nice day' really stands out. And this idea that you're going to have to account for yourself at some point. That connects with the near-death experience stuff. But so the reason I bring up Bob Marley in this context is it has to do with this ship of culture that we're on. The ship of culture, and so which Western civilization, you can look back to the Jews, to the Christians, to the Muslims, to the Rasta. If you speak in an academic setting like they do in comparative religion courses, these people are called people of the book. And the news that has not really seeped into the larger society is that there are some people who have gotten a little further ahead in the book and they know what's next. So some people haven't gotten this far, but some people are stuck in the place where there's the Jews, Christians, Jesus says he'll come back, and now they're waiting for him to come back. Well, there's this other group of people for whom Jesus has come back, and they're Rasta people. Jesus came back as Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia. Rastafari. All right? So there's some people who have already gotten to the end of the book. And I'm not exactly trying to convince anybody of this. I'm observing that this ship, this culture that we're in, is headed in this direction. And so what I foresee happening is over the next 225 years, the culture will shift to the point where everybody accepts themselves as Rasta brothers and sisters, as all one big family. And the reason I say 225 years is because if you look at the history of Christianity, from the time Christ supposedly lived. Now, I'll digress a moment to say you do not have to believe anything to be Neo-Swedenborgian. You do not have to believe that Christ actually lived. Some people say it's just a myth, okay? And we can accept that. That the idea that it's just a made-up myth does not change the reality that we live in now. So the supposed person lived, and it was 300 years later that Christianity became the religion of the realm because of Constantine. So from the time Jesus supposedly lived to the time that it became the religion of the realm, Christianity, is about 300 years. So now we have Haile Selassie, a real person who really did live. And what I'm saying is the time from when he really did live to when he becomes the religion of the realm is approximately 300 years, which takes us approximately to the Hebrew year 6000. The our year 2240 approximately. So the good news is that in 225 years we're going to have peace on earth and a big family of humanity. That's the good news. It's only 224 more years to go. The bad news is it might be a rough road getting there.